Hello guys, Ryan Ho back with another video. Today I want to talk about how you can mod your Beyerdynamic headphones and kind of change its sound, right? So the main goal for me is to kind of tame the treble of the Beyerdynamic. Beyerdynamic headphones are kind of notorious for having this huge spike in the treble that makes it kind of fatiguing to listen to. So I'm going to try to tackle that. So I obviously have the Tygr 300R that I'm going to work on. You guys can apply this to either your 1990s, your 990s, your 880s, 770s. There's a bunch of headphones that are very similarly built to this one. So you guys could kind of take these results and kind of play with those as well. Now, the main issue I have with this headphone is the stock sound is actually not that bad. It's actually way more tame than all the other headphones. But I still found the treble just slightly annoying at times, and I wanted to see if I could come up with something that would be better than the stock. But I've obviously sound better as well. So the goal was to actually lower the treble, but not lower the lower treble, but like the mid and the high treble, if that makes any sense, without kind of making the lower treble kind of too low, because if you do that, then kind of like female vocalists they don't really extend as well and they sound a little bit more muted. So it's kind of a trick to kind of like lower the highest ranges without affecting the lower ranges as much. And that's what I try to achieve with all this stuff on the table. So today we have a bunch of pads I want to talk about, go over like what each of these pads do. Then I'm talk about the foams that I got from Dekoni. So we have Dekoni Elite pads to test, and then we got Dekoni foams as well to test. And then I also had my own like DIY type of materials that I got from around like the house and like went out and bought a few of those. So I want to talk to you about how those work and how those kind of change the sound and all of that. So yeah, this is gonna be a fun video, and I'm gonna go through like my thought process of like how I decided to do each step and kind of things I ran into, the problems, and kind of like how I made each decision, and it led to like my result, which I'm actually pretty surprised with the end result. It sounds pretty good to me, and yeah, please like and subscribe down below. Helps my videos out. I'm trying to get to that 1,000 subscriber mark. I'm literally like almost there. I'm like an inch away, so any help would be appreciated. And I also want to thank Dekoni for sending all this stuff out. Like I said, this is really cool. Allowed me to kind of play with these headphones. I never actually modded a headphone before, so this is the first time I've done it. And I spent like a lot of time because I had so many things to play with, and it was just so much fun just like testing things out and just listening and trying to like make something for yourself. It's kind of fun, you know? All right, so let's talk about how I modded the headphone. So there's two things that I tested with, right? So we tested with different pads, and then we also tested with different, I guess, inner foam combinations or filters. So these are the stock filters that come with the Tygr 300R, and they're simply over here inside, right? And all you had to do is like, I use like a butter knife, and you kind of stick it in here, and then you just turn, and you pop it out, and then you pull it out, and then you can play with different filters to use in here to get a sound that you want, right? So let's talk about pads first, and then we could talk about all the different filters that I basically tested. So when it comes to the pads, we have the stock pads, right? Stock pads are velour, and they're very airy, right? And they're definitely the brightest of the pads. Now, for me, there's one clear best pad, and then there's like a second runner-up, and then the other two are not that great. And I would say for the Dekoni sheepskins and the Dekoni Elite Hybrid, these are made of leather, and they're really good at keeping in the bass as well as like taming the highs, which is kind of what you want. You want to tame the highs, right? But the problem is, because the stock pad is so open, it needs to like, the bass just gets really bloated on the leather ones because there's nowhere for the bass to escape. And I think that's the biggest issue with these. So I would say the leather ones are definitely not going to work well. I tested it in a lot of different configurations, and no matter what I did, it was always a little bit boomy. So yeah, I'm gonna put those on the side. The velours are actually better. They actually kind of in the stock configuration of using the stock inner foams, the velours, and they had a little bit of a bass bloat, but it wasn't too bad. And it also kind of kills a little bit of the lower treble, which is kind of the part that we want to emphasize more. So I felt like these pads were definitely getting you more bass, but then also taming the highs a little bit. But it also kind of tamed the lower treble a little bit too much. So it didn't seem like a good choice for me. But at the same time, I think if you want to base your experience, this is a really good pad for that. So obviously that leads us to one pad left. And this is the fenestrated sheepskin, the Dekoni Elite fenestrated sheepskin. And this one is definitely the best one by like a mile. The bass sounds nice and clean on this. You get kind of the 8K where like the Beyer peak is. It kind of tames that a lot for you, as well as it kind of tames a little bit of lower treble, but it really helps a lot with the 8K. And yeah, these pads are definitely the best ones that I tested for, and I use these the most for all my testing simply because they didn't have that boomy bass like the other ones did. Now that we know the best pads, let's talk about foams. So for Dekoni, they give you 4 foams in their attenuation pack. And the 4 foams you get is essentially you get a gray one, you get this this black foam, and then you get this one, which is the specular, and then you get a shiny. And the shiny one's the less shiny one, and the specular is like the shiniest one, which if that's any confusing at all for you guys, then hopefully me pointing helps you out. Now, how I kind of categorize these is that there's these denser foams and these less dense foams. And these denser foams really didn't kill the kind of highest frequencies like the 8K enough. And they killed a lot of the lower frequencies of the lower treble. And they didn't really kind of achieve what I wanted. So I ended up not using these as much. And then these two over here achieve what I wanted. They actually help you with the upper treble without killing the lower treble too much. So these are definitely the better option for this mod. And I tried all these foams with the fenestrated pad. And what I found was that no matter how many foams I use, it wouldn't kill the treble enough. So I would literally put this foam in and then with this pad, and it would be too kind of harsh. And then I started different combinations. Then I tried like putting like 2 of them together and stacking them together to see if that kind of gets rid of the harshness. And I found that no matter what combination I did, the harsh highs like the 8K, the Beyer peak just kept coming out and I could not tame it. And that's when I decided that I need to do something else, right? And if you look at the stock pad, it's the interesting thing about these pads is that it has a foam on the inside and on the outside this is actually cloth. So it's kind of the dual material. And that's when I got the idea like, yeah, I need to combine the foam on the inside with some sort of material on the outside. So then this is where you get into those like, I guess those Reddit mods that people like to talk about where people try different materials. So the different materials I have is, I have this thing, this is cloth. It's basically like t-shirt material. I bought this from like Daiso for like $1.50. And yeah, I have felt right here. And then we have, this is paper towel material. And this is, I don't know if you guys can tell the difference. This is toilet paper. That's like, I think it's like 3-ply or something. And then we have a coffee filter right here. So the difference between each of these materials is kind of, I'll talk about them, but essentially I would layer one of these with the foam. And then I would put it with the fenestrated together and see what it sounded like, right? And what I found out was kind of interesting. The felt material right here really did actually help tame the highs. It's a pretty thick material, but it also kind of tamed the lower treble as well. And the goal for all these materials is like you want to tame the 8K without changing the lower treble, right? And that's the hardest part is because material like this kind of just cut all the treble off. So the felt did kill the lower treble a little too much, but it was still good enough to like get rid of the harshness. The t-shirt cloth was not good at doing anything. The 8K was there and it's just not a good material. So don't use your t-shirt as a material. Then we have paper towels. These paper towels are surprisingly slightly effective, but I don't think they curb the 8K that much. So you can see I actually have 6 because I ended up making like 3 on each side because it took about 3 on each side to really curb all the treble. And I felt that because it took so much, it's not really worth stacking so many of them, right, in your ear. But yeah, so the paper towel isn't really my favorite, but it's not the worst in the world either. The cloth over here is definitely the worst. And then we have the toilet paper. The toilet paper was actually interesting because when I put the toilet paper in with the fenestrated, all these I basically tested with the fenestrated pad, I actually got like a lot of bass. Like this is probably the most fun bass I've ever had with this headphone was with the toilet paper and the fenestrated. So interesting fact. But the thing about the toilet paper is I found that it kind of curbed the treble really well, but also the lower treble was also curbed a lot too. So it didn't really achieve what I wanted, but it did a really good job, admittedly. Like it was pretty good. And like I said, best bass. Which leads me to the last one that I reached was this. This is a coffee filter. I got this coffee filter from 99 cent store. So it's literally 99 cents. I don't even drink coffee. So I literally have 148 of these left that I don't know what I'm going to do with. But for a coffee filter from a 99 cent store, this thing did precisely what I wanted. For literally, this is the thinnest material of all of them, right? It's just one little coffee filter, filtered it really well. It's killed like the highs really well. But then the lower treble actually stood out more compared to all the other materials on the table. And the best part, like I said, is this is thin. Like I would have to stack more toilet paper or more of these, or even like this kind of thick felt material to achieve it. But this paper was literally the thinnest and it did the best. The only issue with, I guess, the coffee filter, I would say, is that it's made of paper, so it kind of makes some noise. So when you settle it in there, you got to make sure you get it like tightly fit so it doesn't crease too much, or else you're going to hear some crackling in your ear, right? But this is definitely the best one. And so I basically use this with these foams. So I use this foam and then I use the fenestrated pad. And that was kind of my best result for a while. And then I started playing with a bunch of stuff, but I couldn't beat this combo. This combo was clearly the best combo for the mod. But then I thought about it for a little while. I was like, this thing makes a lot of noise. What if I kind of took this and instead put not the foam against the driver, but put the paper against the driver and the foam on the outside and see what the result was with the fenestrated pad, right? And the result was pretty much similar. And then I thought, well, what's the point of the foam if the paper is probably filtering most of it before it hits the foam, right? So then I just didn't use the foam. And it sounded about the same, but a little bit better. I felt like it brought out a little bit more of the treble that I wanted in the lower treble because it still wasn't kind of, I guess, emphasized enough. And this way it actually came out a little bit more. And then I tested in this configuration, and for the longest time, I actually used this for like a day. I was like, all right, this is the final product. Like this is the last thing I'm gonna use. But then I was like, I felt like I could do with a little bit more treble, like a little bit more lower treble could come out. But I couldn't find any material that would do it best. And then after thinking, like today, I literally figured it out. I was like, oh, what if I just took the fenestrated off and put in the original pads, because the original pads would be even brighter than the fenestrated. And in this combo, really the treble came out more, but this thing still surprisingly killed the peak. Like the peak still did not appear. And it's hilarious because like this thing is literally a small piece of paper compared to their filter, which is like multi-layered with like cloth and everything, and it's all fancy. And this one thing kills the highs so well, it's ridiculous. And yeah, I think in this configuration, it sounded better than stock to me. Personally, it did exactly what I wanted. It killed the highest treble, and then the lower treble was preserved enough where it was just as good as stock, if not a little bit better. And it was just much more comfortable listen for me. And this was kind of my end up configuration using stock pads and a coffee filter. Now, something I do recognize is that The Tygr 300R is probably the least sibilant of the headphones. And, you know, if you had like a DT 1990 or something else, you might need to use more than just the coffee filter and the stock. I would say if you had a lot of 8K, a lot of treble, then you could probably use this in combination. The Dekoni fenestrated pad will probably be better at curbing the highs, because the Tygr 300R had some kind of mods, not mods, but like upgrades done to the back of the driver. Actually, I can show you guys, I guess. So Tygr 300R, actually, I think it has more foam in the back than the other headphones do. So I think it tames the treble a little bit more than other headphones. But yeah, your mileage may vary depending on, you know, what headphone you have, like the DT 990 or the 880, because they're all kind of tuned a little differently. So I would say try a coffee filter first, and then start kind of layering like a foam if the treble is still too much. And then if the treble is still too much, then yeah, I would try the Dekoni fenestrated pads on top of that to kind of tame it. Because I think a combination of these materials will really help depending on your model of headphone. So to summarize the sound of the Tygr 300R with the coffee filter mod, the sound of this thing has really nice bass. The mids are like actually like there, present. This doesn't actually sound like, I guess, V-shaped anymore, where there's like bass and like a lot of upper treble. It actually sounds more like neutral. So the vocals are actually like kind of the center point without the treble kind of over masking everything. And yeah, this headphone sounds very neutral and very detailed in the mid-range. And then, like I said, in the treble, you now have a better balance between the lower treble is more emphasized, and then the upper and mid treble is kind of lower, not as emphasized. And it's a much more comfortable listening experience and more accurate, in my opinion. With these changes, honestly, this headphone has become one of my favorite headphones now. It has like good bass, good vocals, and really good like soundstage because it's for Beyerdynamic. It's honestly kind of better than my 5.8X now. I mean, the 5.8X is still good, but it doesn't have like the soundstage capability that this headphone has. And now that this has tamed like harshness, it's just as like comfortable listening experience as the 5.8X. And yeah, this overall is a very, very good headphone. And yeah, I couldn't recommend it enough. Yeah, so in the end, my recommendation is definitely for the Tygr 300R, I would use the coffee filter and the stock. You get a really good sound that sounds better than, I guess, the default Tygr 300R. Another configuration I liked was definitely the fenestrated pad with the toilet paper. So the toilet paper had really good bass. It was really fun. This was like a great combination. I think it was the best bass I heard. Another configuration I tried that was quite interesting too was the coffee filter with the velour. This also brought out the bass a lot. Obviously, this configuration, the vocals and like the lower treble are going to be kind of curbed a little bit more than I would like, but it's a little bit more of a warmer and like darker sound, but it's still a fun sound. And I can see some people liking this if they just want more bass to rock out to. So that's also a fun combination to try. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I hope this helped everyone kind of learn about what these materials do and what works. And I would, yeah, encourage you guys to just try it out, especially some of the stuff you can just get at home. And yeah, it's really a fun thing to like test out. And I also want to thank Dekoni Audio again for sending all these things out. It was really nice of them to let me try all these things and kind of experiment and find the best thing. Anyways, if you guys enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe down below. It really helps my videos out. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.